So then we want to make these different levels of the background to the foreground, background, middle level, and then foreground here. And we're starting with the lightest blue that we had. And we're also being mindful that the light is coming out here and it's spreading out this way. And that will affect what we do with all our shades of blue that we apply into it. So, because from this point, it's really quite light, so we don't need to actually add too much into our landscape, because this moon is so bright and vibrant. But then as we get further away, we can apply a bit more shading. And we'll make this a bit more dramatic. Here, I think. There we go. And so I want thin little lines because it's further away, and we want thicker lines as we get here. So if you do a quick line, that will also help you to do a neat line, and don't worry about it going over into this section because you're going to cover it up anyway with your tree. So going from your kind of vanishing point and then coming out, so that's come out here, and then we're gonna make this come round. We're gonna get a bit nice thicker lines from there. So thin little lines, and then bigger lines out on this way. And it's got a nice curvature, and you can really exaggerate that if you want to. And then from here, we can make this nice hill more defined. The same with this one up here. And we're gonna create some shading in this area. So as you can see, this goes to its darker tones. So we're just adding some of those to make this landscape a bit more interesting. And then we're going to use this darker blue just to create a bit of shadow in this distance, or haze from the atmosphere, but then it's going to fade out when it gets closer to that light. So I'm coming back in with that lighter blue. So all of that's quite mellow. There we go. And in terms of the way this light is here, it would create a little bit of shadow along that part of the landscape, just because most of the light's hitting there, and it would probably create longer shadows coming down here from the trees, which we'll add. So we can pop those trees in, I think. So the trees, I'm going to start with yellow, because in terms of my colour scheme, I'm sticking with these blue tones, and the yellow will contrast really nicely against that blue. We can have some different sized trees. There we go. And then this tree is going to be nice and tall, and it's going to take over. So you can see just scribbling it in, quite free and easy. We want a nice impressionistic tree here. We're going for a kind of wholesome Christmas setting. There we go. There's your other tree there. And we said that we would have a couple more trees in the distance there as well. That's what I'm kind of going for. But so this helps give us a sense of distance and space. Okay, so we've got these lovely yellow tones in now. Now, again, thinking about that light, these are actually going to be in shadow, so there's no light coming from that side because all the light's hitting the top and the surface. So we can actually work with these purples again, and we'll just allow a bit from the top. We'll really work in with the rest of it. And you see it makes them really stand out against the blue. So we keep those peaks in, because the blue and the yellow make that bit appear like the green peaks, but then these yellow and purpley bits look like really shadowy parts of the tree. And we can just add a little bit more blue as we get further away from the bottom of the tree where the moonlight, so we want to create this little bit of shade. There we go. So we've got some trees and we've got some shade. There we go. Very nice. And we're doing the same with the split here. So, actually no. So this lightest blue was in this section, and this mid blue was in this section here. So we're going with this blue to marry up with that. And you can see already this bit, which had more of that blue in, is already making this appear nice and green. So we just need to continue that with the rest of it. But I then want to take it to that next stage to show the shadow, and I even include a little bit of purple for the really darker parts. And so this gives us just some nice bits of contrast for where the top of the leaf is highlighted with the green and underneath the leaf is in shadow, and that's what we're doing with these bits. I don't know, can you say leaf with a conifer tree? Maybe foliage? I'm not entirely sure. But it's just to show the difference between the contrast of where the highlights of the light is falling and where there is shade. So I'm also being mindful of the fact that you've got the bulbous light there, so we're actually going to put more shading around this bottom corner where it's not hitting, the light isn't hitting in the same way, so it's much more shaded. And then we're going to just have the long shadow again hitting out there, and because we're in this darker section, we can go with that darker tone, and as there's more opportunity for light to get there, it fades out. So there we go, and I can put a little bit in here too. There we go. Lovely. So, and then we've got this tree over here now, so same thing again. So thinking about which one we're marrying up to, and that was this colour on the blue. And thinking again about this light. So I'm really sticking to the left-hand side away from the moon. And I'll go in with the lighter blue on this side. And as you can see, the hillside starts to all blend in with the green foliage. The path has disappeared, and in its place is a lovely Christmas tree. There we go. And I quite like having a few little dobbles of yellow coming through, because I think it just adds a little bit of magic. And it's the same as with here, because it's quite facing the light quite a lot. I'm actually just gonna do it on the shadow side, the blue, so they almost look like they're illuminated. by this moon right now. But I am also going to add some purple into these darker parts because I do just want to add a little bit of contrast. But you can see, really, we've just got an impression of a tree. It's not a real tree, really. It's a lovely textured triangle. But the nice thing is, with all of these type of trees that you're creating, you can look online and you can get a range of options. So if you've got a couple of trees in mind, or if you want a bare tree with lots of angular spiky arms, roots and leaves sticking up, or branches and everything, just pop onto the internet, find the silhouette and shape, and use that as your starting point. So I was just adding in a bit more yellow to intensify against this purple, and that will create the darkest parts here. You can see they're beginning to show that depth. There we go. And then again, so over here we've got the darker shadow, and we're kind of coming away from this light. So around here we're going to create quite a lot of shadow, but because the light's coming in and it's hitting around here, I'd say it comes up to maybe about there, and then it probably falls around there. This tree is giving a lot of this shadow over here, and that will fall back. This hill is contributing to that shadow as well, so this will be darker still. But if you think of this tree as almost spherical, so we want to create this point of light coming down, and then we want to follow the contour. If you think of the contours of maps, you want to increase the amount of light and dark going there. So you want to try and help create that shape of the hillside. And remembering we've gone from this inner light and we want to work our way back. So now we're applying this darker blue and we're keeping it to the areas which are darkest. So that I would say there is going to be quite a bit of darkness in this section, just because we're following this curvature around, and also Mr. Tree is creating some shadow. So then we came into this darker section here, and that's where we can really apply this in. And we'll also just give a bit of texture there. And I'm going to put a little bit there too, just to help keep that all balanced. And this darkest section here, I'm going to stick down here, because this is where the absolute darker section is, and that can be in the middle. But we're going to layer that back up, because in this case we really don't want any highlight coming through, so we want to neutralize that and turn that into proper shade. There we go.